Good morning, everyone. I am a product of Montessori schools, and Montessori deeply impacted my life and the future direction of some of the things that I would create. Before we get started in that, I want to tell you a little story. One spring day, I decided to take a walk while I was at Montessori preschool. And I was pondering the great mysteries of life as a 4-year-old only can. And walking along very calmly, and all of a sudden, bam! Fireworks exploded before my eyes. A great revelation hit me. Well, what actually hit me was some friends of mine were experimenting with velocity, acceleration, the slope of a curve, and had kicked a giant bright red Folgers coffee can into the sky. And based on their very precise calculus, it hit me full in the face. And I don't think that's what Maria Montessori had in mind when she talked about the absorbent mind. But nevertheless, it stuck, and it left me with a permanent reminder of my days at Montessori, and I'm not pointing to my brain. But nevertheless, a seed was planted during those formative years, and that seed would bear fruit many years later. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. At 10 years old, I became a hacker. And hacker today has a negative connotation. It's a word that we associate with invasion of privacy or people taking over your computer, things like that. I'm talking about the original definition of hackers, people who were insanely curious about this new world of technology, of communications, of computing power. You know, they were pioneers in a totally new frontier. And they built the basis of what fuels our modern tech-driven world. I became part of this group through a confluence of events. My dad had purchased this new thing called an IBM personal computer for his business. He had no idea what to do with it. And I was obsessed. I was mesmerized by the amber glow of its monochrome screen. I was determined to figure out its secrets. And so I spent some time exploring and just learning what I could. And when I was 12 years old, my grandfather, he was a very early adopter of computing technology in the airline industry. And he pulled me aside one day and said, "Look, I want you to build a computer, and I'll pay for all the parts. Like I'll get you what you need, but you need to put it together, and you need to figure out what you're going to do with it." And that was an amazing investment into my life. So through that, when I was about 12 years old, I asked my parents for my own phone line. They assumed that I wanted to be talking to girls. What I really needed was to hook up my 2400 baud modem to the phone line and get connected. This is before the days of commercial internet. This is the days of the bulletin board system. And I'm not going to go into the details of how that works, but I was able to connect to these other people who were like me, these other people who were curious. And for the first time in my life, I found my tribe. And I saw the power, sometimes frightening power, of what a connected group of people who have this unquenchable curiosity and unbridled creativity. It was an amazing power that I discovered. So I'm going to jump ahead. About 6 years ago, I was running a software development company, doing a lot of consulting, and we were experimenting with a lot of new technology, but more importantly, some new methods on organization and team development, really based around self-organization, self-discovery, creating an environment where people could be their most creative. People could be the problem solvers that they were meant to be. And through that environment that we had established, I was pretty sure we were going to do great things, but I could have never anticipated what we actually created out of that. We created something called Gangplank. It's a little bit of a rebellious name, and we're okay with that. But Gangplank is a manifestation of the hacker ethic. The hacker ethic is based on openness, sharing, decentralization of authority, free access to information, and most importantly, world improvement. So that ethos had been affecting me for most of my life because of my participation in these groups and looking at how do we transform the world. I became involved in the free software movement, open source, all of these things. All these ideas manifested themselves in Gangplank. It is really a physical manifestation of all of those values. So what is Gangplank? It's a collaborative workspace, but it's far more than that. It's a movement. We have multiple locations across the US and in Canada, and we're uniting creative people together to create amazing things. And here's our basic philosophy, that we need to encourage chaos, that chaos is required to free us from the bonds of the status quo. We need to maximize our creativity. And most importantly, we need to collaborate. We need to work together to build a better future. Innovation is bringing that creative idea to market in some way, but it has to be balanced by fun. We need to love what we're doing, but we also need to demand excellence of ourselves. Gangplank is a show-upocracy. It's all about who's there, who's doing things, who's creating things. We don't reward effort. We don't reward participation. We reward results, making a difference. Now, some of you might be familiar with the idea of co-working. Gangplank is very different. You cannot pay to be at Gangplank. We require something much more expensive, which is your time, your energy, your passion. You must be giving back to participate. So, some of the ideas that I inherited from my early Montessori education were really about creating an environment that delivers the expected results and encouraging people's individual creativity. And at Gangplank, we've busted through the status quo of how organizations work, how people work together. And we've really taught them how to create magnificent things with each other. But the system demands that happens. The things that we've set up, the way we've organized everything that we do, it expects that greatness will occur. My friend Jim McCarthy, he talks about magnificence a lot. And he says that abundant goodness leads to greatness, but abundant greatness is magnificence. And I believe this is the legacy that we have to leave for our children, for the next generation. We can create a world, we can create a system that not only expects but demands magnificence. And we have a choice today. We can continue to give them a world that is mediocre. We can sabotage their future because we're jealous, they haven't paid their dues. We can, through apathy, condemn them to a life of mediocrity. Or we can start to take apart the systems that we see. We can hack those systems. We can apply that ethic to making a difference, to changing their world, and delivering them a future made of magnificence. I believe that ingenuity is the currency of the next golden age of humanity. That the world that our children will inherit is something we can never anticipate. Just like our parents could never have foreseen the world that we live in right now. And we need to be raising up a tribe, a generation of people who are adaptable, who are so built around an uncertain, unstructured future that they can do anything. They're capable of things that we could never imagine. And I want to give you real quick just an example of some of the things that we're doing to make this future a reality. So we have a program called Gangplank Junior. This is taking the ideas that we've developed with Gangplank and applying them to kids. We've seen some fantastic things. Kids are so much smarter than us. We tried an experiment one time We had a bunch of Lego kits, Lego Mindstorms, and we had an objective that they needed to complete. We put a bunch of 9 to 14-year-old kids, and we locked them in this room. They were on spring break. We said, like, here's all the stuff. You guys just do stuff with it. Do something cool and show us what you're doing. And, you would imagine that they built a bunch of cool Lego robots, and they certainly did that. But what we didn't imagine is that 14-year-olds were teaching geometry and algebra to 9-year-olds. 9-year-olds were teaching computer programming to the 14-year-olds. One of the kids said, I've never understood this in class, but I totally understand it now. I get it. We have an intern who's 12 years old who's working his summer break out of Gangplank right now. And he came to his dad and he said, Dad, why do I have to go to school? Why can't kids just come to Gangplank where we actually learn things? That was a profound statement. I believe our mission is to stop betting on the lone genius, stop hoping for accidental genius. That we need to develop the systems that demand a tribe, a generation of genius emerges. We can't leave the world to mediocrity. And so my question for you, the dangerous idea, is I want you to think, as you listen to some of these other speakers, they've become hackers in their own way of the systems that they've seen around them to transform them into something else. I want you to think about, what are the systems that you're a part of? What are the organizations that you're involved in? And how do you hack those organizations? How do you hack society? Not just for your own benefit. How do you hack them to leave our kids a magnificent future? Thank you.